Hey guys, welcome to the Scholar Online YouTube channel, the channel that is all about learning. Okay, so if you're new to this channel, make sure that you don't forget to subscribe to us so that you'll get notified every time we have a new video on the channel. We typically have new videos every week and we talk about everything from Python development to artificial intelligence development to web development to like WordPress. I mean, anything that's got to do with coding and programming, you're probably gonna find it on this channel. Okay, we are a learning channel. We had to teach you guys so you can learn to be able to build some of these applications yourself. All right, so again, remember to like this video, smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, go underneath the description box of this. Always check out the description box because inside of the description box you're going to find all the links that I'm going to be talking about. So if I say to you that I'm going to link it in the description below, you're going to find that in the description box. Okay, and then also there will be video timestamps. Our videos are quite long. You do not have to watch the entire video. You can go into the timestamps and you can just jump to the section that you like. If you want to jump to that section over there, just click it there and it will take you to that section and you can just watch what you want. And if you come back in future again, you can just always use the description box. Okay, and then we've got links to all our social media publications, everything. Just check it out and then let's get learning. Okay, in this video here today, I'm going to be showing you an alternative to GPT-3 that you can access right now, open source, for free, no API keys, and you can just get it done to and you can use it for text generation. Okay, it is called GPT-Neo and it is sort of like a clone or a sort of like a cheap ripoff of GPT-3, but it is also quite effective in certain things, and it really depends on the use case that you want to use the text generation for. And if you have a use case that you cannot afford, for example, an approval, and you you want to just like not have limitations and not have to pay for it, you might want to consider GPT-Neo. Okay, and I'll take you through all the steps, but I wanted to show you quickly what we're going to be building at the end of the day. All right, so over here you'll see I've got my command line that I've already done. All right, and I'm going to take you through this whole process of how I got here in this video. We're going to be running this on a virtual private machine that is running out on DigitalOcean platform. Okay, so what we have built is this. Okay, so once you've done everything, you'll be able to run this code, import transformers, generate text, and this is the model that we're going to use to generate text. And then we're going to give it a prompt, an Apple iPhone as a prompt, and then we're going to ask it to generate text that's 100 characters long and print out the output. Okay, so if you list this where we are right now, you'll see there's a file called gpt2.py. If you open that file like that, you will see everything that I'm showing you. I've already pasted it inside of that file. Okay, and then I'm going to close that file and then I'm going to run that file. It takes quite a bit of time, so I'm going to fast forward to the end of me running that file. Okay, so we have a response. The response it gave us is an Apple iPhone 7, iOS 11 is the most powerful phone out there, which makes it the best phone ever, and that also makes it the most expensive one out there. The best phone since it comes with a huge battery and an incredible performance, but when you look at the price, you'll find out that Apple is now trying to push you to spend more. Here are all the best gadgets that are compatible with an Apple iPhone. All right, so this is reasonable text generation. I mean, if you wanted to, depending on the use case, this is what you can get out of the GPT-2. It does take quite a bit of time though, and this is what we're going to build. And of course, if you just copy and paste this code, you can take a screenshot and copy and paste this code and run it. It's not going to run it just because you have to install a couple of things. You have to install PyCharm. You have to set up your virtual server to run Python, your virtual environment. So that is actually what we're going to spend 40 minutes doing. And then once we've done that, then you can run these 4 lines of code and get the outcome that I show you. Okay, so that's what we're going to cover in this video, and let's get started. So basically, GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. So it is a transformer model, if you're familiar with that in Python. All right, and they provide you with models that they have already trained sitting in their servers that you just access via an API. And this has really simplified and accelerated the use of artificial intelligence use cases within the industry. You can just see the boom in that has happened in the last couple of years with respect to what we call, text generators, copywriters, blog generators. All of these are all based on GPT models, all right? I got a question this week from one of my clients, not clients really, but like students here on Scholar Online, but like, can we develop our own they wanted to develop their own GPT model, thinking that, that they can't get the results that they want out of the available online GPT-3. And I think I had to say to them, I might have sounded a bit rude, but GPT-3, the current one, he's been trained on over 150, 75 billion parameters. All right, it has been trained over almost all the information that's available on the internet. It's on the internet, trillions and trillions of data over years. It cost billions of dollars to do, right? So it's not something that you can wake up tomorrow and think, I think I'm gonna just build my own GPT model because I don't like the one that's being provided by OpenAI. Yes, you can, but it's going to take you as much time and as much money to build your own, all right? So this is why people were not doing it before, because it's an expensive process, and OpenAI has taken the initiative to do it and then provide it to the industry at a fee. Hence, we access it via the API and we pay for the right to access it. So that's their business model. But that has opened up, a lot of use cases and allowed many people that would not have otherwise been able to build and train their own models to find already trained models that they can just customize for their specific use cases. So trust me when I say this, you're not going to build your own GPT model overnight. You can do it, but it will cost you a couple of years and a couple of billions of US dollars to do, all right? So it is easier. But the good news is there is alternative models that have been built by other people, perhaps trained on less data, that can perform some of the functions, probably not to the quality or to the level of the GPT-3 models, but perhaps towards a reasonable standard or a reasonable level that you can still get something out of it without going via OpenAI, all right? So you might not be able to train your own or build your own, but you can find open source models out there that have been pre-trained that you can actually use without going through the process of applying for an API key and your app maybe not getting approved in terms of the use case that you have, because I find that's a bit of a challenge. There are certain use cases, like in my case, I wanted to build a tweet generator, something that will generate automatic tweets based on your industry. So you don't have to like tweet every day. You can just have the AI generate tweets for you, and then you can decide to tweet those things on, for example, the Twitter API, all right? A use case like that, for example, will never be approved by OpenAI. OpenAI will never approve an automated tweet generator that just generates tweets and posts to your Twitter via an API, because the specific state on their website they wouldn't approve something like that. So if I wanted to build that, I might have to get my own model, or perhaps use another model that can do that. All right. So there are situations where you might want to consider using a different model. So today we're going to discuss GPT-Neo and other available text generation models that you can use out there. All right. So the reason why I've got the slide over here, what I wanted to show you here is the difference in parameters, just to give you an indication of the size of the model, right? If you look at GPT-2, it was way smaller than GPT-3. GPT-2, I think, had about 1.5 billion parameters, and this is from the internet. I don't know for sure. This is what Wikipedia says, all right? If you look at GPT-3 today, the latest one, has been trained on over 175 billion parameters, okay? So it is by orders of magnitude way larger, right? Even compared to GPT-Neo. So GPT-Neo was almost in the same ballpark as GPT-2, but GPT-3 was a bounds and bounds ahead. And nowadays, with the GPT models, you even have the Instruct series, which is even better than the original GPT-2 that was initially released last year, which was the GPT-3. Like the DaVinci GPT, the original one, was more like GPT-2, where you had to give it a prompt for it to continue and generate text for you. Nowadays, with the Instruct series, actually, you can tell it what you want it to do. So you can say, generate for me a tweet, all right? That is not necessarily a completion, right? You tell it what you want it to do. It's an instruction, and it will listen to that instruction and give you the content that you want. And that is like a huge improvement, and you don't get that with GPT-Neo. You can't can't give it specific instructions. You have to like start writing something and then it complete it for you based on, you know, what it will read and understand what it is you're writing. Okay, so there's a huge difference. And definitely, if you want the most advanced, definitely GPT-3 is. But today, let us discuss GPT-Neo, okay? So GPT-Neo, basically, I've got some notes that I've written here that I'm going to make available. I'll put a link in the description of this video, and you can go through these notes, and these notes are going to cover all the steps we're going to follow in this tutorial, all right? And then you can refer to them later on, even in your own time, okay? So the first thing that you need to understand, we've got some prerequisites for this tutorial. Okay, we're going to be working off a DigitalOcean Droplet because I want to show you how to actually run this model yourself in like a cloud environment. And then if you wanted to build an application on top of it, once you've run the model, you can then attach an application like a Flask application, for example, to it. And then you can then, for example, load that application and, you know, and get it to go live. So I'm gonna show you all the steps to set up a a virtual server where you can run this, because you would not want to run this on your own computer, on your personal computer. This is not going to be possible. If you look at some of the models there, like the GPT-2 model, the Neo one, if you look at this 1.3 billion parameters and 2.7, it takes about 10 gigs of memory, okay? So it's going to be very difficult to run this on your own private computer. You're going to need a cloud server to do this, all right? So I'll show you how to set that up with DigitalOcean. And then after that, there's a couple of things we need to install. The prerequisites for being able to run the pipeline, you need to have pytorch, all right? So I'll show you how to do that. And obviously the transformers model that we need to get running. Then after that, you know, we're gonna be using these models. We're gonna be using HuggingFace because, online API repository, or where a lot of companies sort of upload their models over here, and you can have a look over there at all the available models that you can work with. So when I was talking about a text classification, for example, there is tons and tons of text classification models here that you can actually use, all right? And you can have a look over there and see how many times they've been downloaded. So if you like sort based on most downloads, you can see the most popular ones obviously will be the ones that are downloaded the most. And then, you might want to use that, for example. So when it comes to text generation, which is what we're interested in, you can see all the text generation models available here. And you can see this is the most downloaded one with over 20 million downloads. And the next one is GPT-2 with on 12.5. And you can use whatever model you want. You can figure out which one works better in all these models and you can use it. So the one that I was telling you about, the 1.3 GPT-Neo models is this one over there. So this is the 1.3 billion parameter model. It takes quite a bit of space, and I actually tried running it on a droplet, and it, the memory ran out, and I couldn't, you have to get a bigger droplet to get a bigger memory, so sometimes the model, when you try to run it, you'll see, and I'll show you and I'll demonstrate it to you when we get to that point, that the model is actually too big and the memory runs out and the process just gets killed and you can't complete it. So, if you want a more complex task, then I would go for the 2.7 billion, model. But then for this one, you might want to, get a bigger droplet with more memory, maybe because you need like about 10 gigs of memory to be able to run this on it. And so you're going to need a much bigger machine. This is why you can't run this on your own machine. But the good news is, HuggingFace does provide an API as well, all right? So this is an alternative API to the OpenAI API, all right? So you can use the HuggingFace API to access any of these models. This means that you don't have to install the models in your personal computer. I'll show you how to do that. You can have a look at their pricing page, and their pricing page is definitely less and cheaper than the OpenAI price. You can see here, you're only paying like $9 a month. And then you have like, sort of like, I think unlimited 1 million input characters, I think over there. And I don't know, 1 million is quite a lot. And you can try this out and compare it, but I mean, it depends on the kind of app you want to build. What I like about this API here, even though you're gonna pay $9 million a month, there isn't a lot of oversight management controls of what you can use the model for, which is the challenge sometimes with OpenAI, is that they police you quite a lot with what it is they allow you to use the model for. So you have to fit within their use cases, or else they don't allow your application to go live, all right? So over here, you might have a little bit more freedom with what you can use the models for, but of course, the OpenAI models are much more advanced, okay? So I must mention now that this can only be done on Python, obviously. So so the JavaScript guys, sorry, you can't run a lot of these whatchamacallit, you can't run a lot of these AI, machine learning type functionalities on anything. I mean, you can run it on like Java, for example, but like Python is definitely one of the best ones, and it just works. Okay, so at some point, if you want to get into AI and data science, you might have to really learn Python. I'm saying this because I know I'm gonna get the comments of, can we do this, and can you please do the tutorial of this in JavaScript? Okay, so no, this is going to have to be done on Python. All right, so let's get started. I've talked a lot, given you a bit of background. Let's get started with our tutorial. Okay, so the first step, like in my notes over here, is the prerequisites. So I'm going to take you through the process of getting your server running so that you can be able to run these models. Okay, so I've got a link in the description. I'm going to put this link in the description, but I've got the link in the notes as well. You can just click on this link, it'll take you to DigitalOcean, and then you can create a droplet over there. All right, so I've got my DigitalOcean open already here, and once you create an account, you can then just go ahead and create a droplet. Okay, so you click at the top over there and you decide that you want a droplet. So let's go there and see available droplets. What I like about DigitalOcean is they're very flexible. So when you create a droplet, you don't get charged immediately for the whole month like other service providers. If I created a droplet and I decided that within 10 days I don't want it anymore, I can delete it and I'll only get charged for 10 days. All right, so they charge you per, they charge you after you've used the service, and then they charge you for only how much you have used. All right, so I'm gonna go for that. And Ubuntu, you can see over here, you can select the different types of Ubuntu that you want. All right, so I want the 20.04, the latest version. You can choose any other operating system that you like, but let's work with the Ubuntu 20.04. Make sure that's selected, and there's your CPUs. All right, so memory optimized is obviously the better one if you wanted to work with the 16 billion GPT model. So what I would do here, I think I showed you the sizes over there. So let's see. So if you wanted to work with this, for example, the Eleuther GPT-Neo 2.7 billion, which will give you better outputs and better results, all right, depending on what your use case is, close, even better than the old GPT-2, but not as good as the latest GPT-3, but it's probably the best available model out there that's open source. All right, so if you want for text generation specifically, and if you wanted to automate text generation, this one would be the one that I want to go for. And if you wanted to do that model, you would want to go for something that's memory optimized, and the cheapest one is $80 a month that you can select. Okay, and you can see over there it's got 2 CPUs, and it's got a 50 gigs SSD, whatever, and it's got a memory of 16 gigs, I think, right? So this will cover the 10 gig memory that you need for this model. All right, so I'm gonna use this. Okay, I'm gonna select this one because I'm gonna delete the droplet as soon as I'm done. But let me select this one because the last time I used the basic one and I couldn't download the model and it wouldn't work. All right, so let's use the memory optimized one and see what happens over there. All right, and then once you've selected that, you go down here, you're going to then select the location where the data is going to be saved. This is just only important if, for legal issues based on your, whatever if you're going to be doing this for clients and stuff like that. I always like to go for, a location that's closest to me with respect to time zones, because then when they do their maintenance, perhaps they'll be doing it at night, even in my time zone. Okay. So then you can select whether you want a password login or an SSH key login. All right. So what we can do, because I'm not going to go through the whole process of getting SSH keys for you, perhaps we'll go for a password login, because then I would have to teach you how to do SSH keys if you're not sure how to do it. But I must stress this right now, very, very important. This is very bad practice. Very, very bad practice. Okay, when you create a virtual server, you do not want to access it via a password. You want to access it via SSH keys. That is the best way to do it. Okay, and I always do it that way. But because I can't take you through a process of getting SSH keys right now, I'm going to just keep it with the password, and you can see over there that they're already giving you a warning about this. But because I'm going to delete this thing right now, I'm just going to use a password, and then I'm going to leave it at that. All right. All right. So what's the problem? Must contain one number, must contain a special character. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's see. Cannot end with a number or a special character. All right. So I'm going to write my password so I don't forget what I selected. Okay. Okay, let me enter it again just to make sure it's the correct one. Okay. What is wrong now? Oh man, that's not the one. There you go. That's the password. All right, so once you've done that, enable backups. That's recommended. I don't mind. Monitoring, collection, monitoring, alerting. I don't know. I'm going to delete this right now, so I don't mind about that. And then over here, just remember you want to give it a different name so that you can, access it. And if you had a domain, for example, you might want to give it the same name as the domain that you're going to be working with. All right. So once you've done that, you're going to select a project that you're going to work with. So I'm just going to go through everything and make sure that everything is okay. I'm using password. It's going to be in Amsterdam. I'm selecting this $80. All right, Droplet, which is memory optimized because we're doing AI functions, and then you just go and create a droplet. And when you do that, it is pretty much, it's going to, all right, go ahead and create a droplet for you. So let me just close that. And where is my droplet now? Okay, there you go. Took a bit of time to create, but just refresh the page. I just moved from there to another one and I came back, and you'll see your droplet appears over there, right? So once you've created your droplet, the first thing, then you can log into your droplet. So I'm just going to copy the IP address, and then I need to just find like a command line, and then you can log into your droplet. Okay. So to log into your droplet, the first time you are going to use, if you're working from a Mac, you're going to just say SSH. You need to log in as root because root is obviously the first root user that's created on the droplet. And then you just say root add and you put in your droplet IP, and then this will allow you to log in. Of course, you'll have to enter your password in this case because you didn't actually input SSH keys. But if you had input SSH keys and you had them on your computer, this would just be a seamless process. And I've got a video in this channel that shows you how to get SSH keys and set up a droplet properly. So watch that video to do things properly. But if you want to use passwords, then you can continue with what I've got here. All right. So once you do that, you can enter it. It will ask, this is a new droplet. You're logging into this thing for the first time. Do you trust this machine? The reason why it's asking you this is because it's very dangerous if you don't know the thing that you're the IP that you're connecting to. It'll make your computer vulnerable to attacks via that IP. So I do trust this source. Okay. And then I have to enter my password now because I'm using a password login instead of an SSH. So let's do that. All right, enter, and then password. What did I do now? Did I enter the password wrong? Oh no, please don't tell me that I didn't get the password right, because that's all it takes. and I can't log into my Droplet. Oh my gosh, Amy. Okay, let's try again. Oh no, yes. Oh, okay, got it. All right, so I got the password the last time. Geez, I was a bit scared because if you got the password wrong, then you might have to go through the process of trying to change that. But anyway, now I've logged into the Droplet as user root. Okay, so the next thing that you need to do is you need to create a different user. All right, so if you're doing this for the first time, you're like, oh, why you have root, you create a different user? No, it's just how you can't run commands and do work on your Droplet as root, because root has got like sort of automated super user privileges, and you don't want to work on that account. You use that account basically to sort of like administrate and manage your Droplet, but everything else that you do in terms of creating applications, running code and things like that, you have to create a different user for that. And this would allow you as well, if you were an organization, you had like 3 different developers, you'd be able to know who's doing what. Okay, so you would create a specific user account for each and every of your developer, and then give them access rights and access permissions based on their role and the thing that they do. And then all the files will also be saved under that user. Okay, so this is the same with your machine. When you have a MacBook and you log into your MacBook for the first time, it asks you to create an actual user. All right, you can still call the user admin, all right, but you have to create a user. So we're doing the same thing as well on this Droplet. Think of a Droplet like a computer. Okay, so the first thing now we're going to do now is to create a new user. All right, so inside of my notes that I've got over there, I've got clear directions how to do that. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do to create a new user, we're going to say add user, and then we're going to put in the name of the user that we want to add. All right, so add user Scolo. I'm going to call my user Scolo. All right, and then we'll create a new user. It will ask you for a password. All right, I've entered the password there, and I'm going to enter the password again, and then all of that is fine. I'm just going to click enter and say yes, everything is correct. And then just like that, you got a new user called Scolo. Now the user will be created as default, just a normal user. They don't always have root or super user permissions, so you gotta give them that if you want to be able to write sudo commands on this machine with that user. So we just modify the user and add them into the sudo group. Okay, so you just run that command, because your root, everything you run on root doesn't even ask you for a password every time, because you are already a super user as root. Okay, that is why you don't want to run functions. You don't want to run code there. All right, if you had an SSH key created, you would want to run this command. What this would do was it would copy the SSH key from your root account and paste it into the Scolo account, so that you can log into Scolo account as a with the SSH keys. Okay, so we didn't use SSH keys in this case, we used the password. All right, so all of what's required here is done. We can just exit from this machine, and you'll see that it has taken me back to my MacBook. I've now logged out of that root at Scolo Online, which was the virtual server, right? Because I want to work as Scolo, so I need to SSH again. All right, so I need to now connect again, but now connect as a user, the new user that I've just created. Okay, so I'm now going to SSH as Scolo at that VPS. All right, so let's get that VPS number again from here. Let's just copy that. So now we are logging in as a new user that we've just created, and it's going to ask for the password. Now this is not the root password. This is now the password I created when I created that new user, and you can just enter it there, and it's going to log me in. And you'll see now I am now Scolo at Scolo Online. I have now logged in as a Scolo user into a Scolo Online virtual server private, which I just created now, DigitalOcean. So this is all you have to do to create and set up your VPS or your virtual server. Now we're going to be able to now continue and run our code from this server. All right, so I like to always create a mkdir. I like to always create sort of like a folder to work from, so I don't run on the root of the machine. So I'm going to create a folder called development. All right, and I'm going to immediately cd into that folder. Okay, so I'm now inside of the development folder, and then here maybe I'll have multiple projects. So I'm going to have my first project, I'm going to call it GPT-2. Okay, so I'm going to create another directory that I'm going to call GPT-2. All right, and I'm going to cd into that directory. okay, GPT-2, and then this is where I'm gonna work from. Okay, so I've created, now you can see now I've got a folder development and GPT-2. All right, and before I do this, you must know Python 3 is already pre-installed inside of DigitalOcean virtual servers. I don't know if you buy a server from someone else, because what I've shown you here with DigitalOcean, you can buy a virtual server from any service provider. Okay, but I can't confirm that the other guys, what sort of operating system you're gonna get, and if some of these things are already pre-installed. Okay, so I know that with a DigitalOcean for sure, when you create a virtual server there, it does have Python 3 already pre-installed. Okay, to prove that, I can just run Python 3 command from the command line, and you'll see it will take me into the Python. I'm now inside of the Python 3 sort of like shell, and I can actually then run anything here. I can say print my name, whatever, Scolo online. All right, this is a Python command, and it will print it, whatever, so this is inside a Python shell. So you can see that. So I'm going to exit out of that Python 3 is already pre-installed inside of, I didn't do anything to install it, but there's a couple of setup steps that you need to get done to continue, and I'm going to now take you through a DigitalOcean tutorial, because I actually still follow them. All right, even though I know exactly what I need to do, some of the steps they change depending on the version of operating system that you're on. Okay, so if you go to DigitalOcean, I'll also link this in the description below. There is a tutorial for serving Flask applications, okay? And this tutorial is really good for setting up your Python environment as well, all right? So I actually use this tutorial all the time. All you've got to do at the top there is to change the operating system that you're on, okay? So depending on which Ubuntu system you're on, you just change that there, because the steps sometimes are a bit different depending on the operating system that you're on, okay? And this is created specifically for DigitalOcean. So because I'm on Ubuntu 20.04, that's the one I select, and then I'm just gonna go through these steps and follow them until I get done. Okay, so the first one is to obviously update that one. So let's put in our passwords, okay, and then it will go ahead and update the packages, and then you need to then run this one. Installs for you Python 3 pip and a whole lot of other things that you need to run Python code. All right, and be able to create a virtual environment. So and then you can just say yes, that's okay, and then it will go ahead and install all of that for you. So while it's busy doing that, we're going to have to also install the virtual environment. Okay, so this is a package that's going to allow us to create virtual environments. Okay, so that's still running a little bit. Let's give it like a second, and then we're going to install that. Okay, so let's paste that in there. Python 3 virtual environment. I'm okay with that. Yes, take up that space. I bought quite a bit of a machine this time. All right. And then once we've done that, let us now create our project directory. Okay. So I'm already inside of my project directory actually. So I'm just going to run this command that allows me to create an actual virtual env. All right. So Python 3.8 virtual env, I want to call it GPT-2, all right, env, all right. So let's call it GPT-2 env, and then we'll go ahead and create it. You'll see if you list the directory, you have this GPT-2 env over there, all right. So to activate it, as usual, it's just source GPT-2 env bin activate. All right, so let's activate that, and now our environment is activated and we can get started. Okay, so it took quite a bit of steps to get this running. Okay, and you'll see a lot of tutorials online where they're just showing you, once you're already on some server that's already created, how to get started. But if you really were starting from scratch, these are the steps you would need to follow just to be able to run those 4 lines of code. Okay, so now that we've got an environment running, we've installed Python and all the tools, we've got pip, we've got everything going. Now you can actually run these lines of code. Okay, so we're gonna move from there. I'm gonna take you back to my notes, and you'll see the lines of code are actually very simple. Okay, you just basically install pytorch, you install transformers, and then immediately you can start running your models. Okay, this is very simple, but before you can do all of these things, you gotta be in the environment you gotta be in the right environment. Okay, so to install pytorch, I've got a link over there in the notes. You can go to the link and it'll take you to a page like this, and then you can then just run this command over there. All right, and this command actually, you know, if you're inside of the virtual environment, you don't need to use pip3. You'll see inside of pytorch they say pip3, but this is if you're not installing this inside of the virtual environment. I always like to work inside of a virtual environment so that I can separate my projects. Okay, so because I'm inside of the virtual environment, I need to just run pip, not pip3. Okay, so pip, run all of that it gives you. And by the way, inside of the pytorch website, you need to select like which build you like, which machine you're on, and whether you're using pip or what you're using to do the installation, and whether you're on Python or Java. Okay, so you've got to do all of those things, and whether you're on a CPU. So you got to select, you got to do these pre-selections. Like if you were working with Conda, for example, you'll see the command is different. Okay, if you're installing from source, you'll see that the command is different. So we're gonna work with pip, and if you were on a Windows, you would select Windows. Okay, and then it will show you how to do it on Windows. If you're on Mac, you would select Mac, and it will give you a different command. Okay, so because we are on Linux, because now we are on the virtual private server, that is why our command looks like this. All right, so just to clarify that. Okay, so we are on Linux, and this is the command that we need to run inside of the virtual server. So the command they gave you, just have to make a bit of a change. Instead of pip3, you're just gonna say pip because you're inside of the virtual server, and then you're gonna run it. Okay, it's gonna take some time because it's gonna go and install a whole lot of libraries to allow you to be able to work with pytorch, so that you can be able to run transformers. Okay, so just wait for it while it does the installation. So while it's doing that, I'm going to go back to my notes. The next thing that you got to install is transformers. All right, so you just run pip install transformers, and then I'm going to paste that in there, and it's going to go and install transformers. And I think that's a little bit faster to install transformers, and that's I think almost done. All right, so that's it, that's done. We're good to go. So inside of here, I'm going to create a Python file. All right, so my Python file is going to look like this. All right, so this is what the Python file is going to look like. You're going to say from transformers import pipeline. All right, then you're going to say generate a text pipeline, and then generator. Then you're going to run a pipeline and pick what model you want to run with. Okay, so we are using text generation, but there are definitely different options. And inside of my notes, I've sort of illustrated, I've put notes for other things that you might want to do. Okay, but for today's tutorial, we want to just do the text generation. So you could maybe there's models for classification, there's models for language, being able to do language translation. There's models for a lot of things. Okay, and you're gonna pick the model that you want to use. And to get an idea of the models that they've got, I'll put this in the description below as well. These are all the models that they've got. You can use any one of these models, and you can see anything from fill mask, because fill mask now helps you to fill in the missing word. That is those type of models. Questions and answering model, summarization, if you had a long text that you wanted to summarize, maybe you want to build a web app for specific summarization, you got models for that. Questions and answering, text classification. Text classification is actually quite cool. If you want to classify tweets, I had a question there. Maybe we'll do a tutorial on this for our text classification. All right. Token classification, translation. That's also very interesting if you need to build an online translator. And I've seen a lot of guys building this kind of applications here. Okay, and this is something you might not even need to use GPT-3 for. You might be able to get a free open source sort of model over here. The Helsinki one works really well for for text for text translation. If you had maybe and you wanted to maybe translate your application, and you could run it with a model in the background, and you have your translation being shown in different languages. Your application shown in different languages. For anything, you can build an online translator, for example. You can do a lot of with the translation engine here. So, but today we are going to focus only on text generation. Okay, and I wanted to show you that top model that appears for text generation is this one. Okay, is the Distil GPT-2. And I'm just from playing around with these models, I'm assuming the reason why it's the most commonly used, or the one that appears the most, is probably the most effective, that is smallest, okay? Because it's a small model, you can like run it even on a small, VPS. The last VPS that I tested this on was the basic $6 virtual server, and you could run this model on it without issues, okay? The best model is the GPT-Neo 2.7 bytes, but this is quite huge, and this one is the next best thing from there, okay? So I'm going to open this in a new window so I can copy this nicely, this 1.3. Let me copy that there. So in our models, we're going to try all of these, all right? So let's put that in there, all right? And then let's copy the generator code, all right? And then at the end for text generation, if you want to use that model, not the 2.71 model, you're gonna paste that, okay? So I'm gonna try the Neo 1.3 because I've installed a bigger machine this time, and I'm gonna try and see if this one works, okay? If it doesn't, we'll go back to the distilled GPT-2 because I'm assuming this will do a better job, all right? So what we're gonna do is let's just start a Python shell over here. So you just say Python, it'll open a Python shell over there, and then let's say from transformers, let's import pipeline. All right, gonna go and import the model, the pipeline library. Then from there, we're gonna load our model, okay? So when you run this command to load the model, what happens? It happens automatically in the background, is that the Python code downloads the model into your machine, all right? Because you are gonna now install the model in your machine, and then you can use the model to run, okay? It will only download it once, the first time you run it. The next time you run it, it does not download it every time, okay? So I'm going to now download this model, the 1.3 byte model. You'll see it takes a bit, and you can see the download process happening in the background. We've got a bigger virtual server this time, so let's hope that we'll be able to run this on memory because it's a smaller engine as well. But what's happening in the background is that it's downloading the model, and this is a difference between doing something like this, which is open source and downloading the model yourself, and going and using an API for OpenAI. The OpenAI API, you don't download the model when you're using it. You basically use the model that is sitting inside of their inside of their servers, and you do an API call to that model, and then that model is already sitting there, and then it gives you a response. What we're doing here, although the model is pre-trained, we are downloading it into our machine. So every time we run a command now, it's going to actually just run the command with the model downloaded on our machine. This is why now we don't need any API keys. We don't need to pay. We don't need to even justify what we're using the thing for. We don't have to have anybody check our application. So that's the benefits of using an open source model, is that you can basically, do pretty much anything you want with it, all right? But obviously the downside, like I've already mentioned, is the limitations that, yes, you can do anything you want, but the model is not as great as the GPT-3, which is already trained on like way more parameters. You can see 175 compared to 1.3 billion. All right. So you can read more on this model over here. You can see the limitation, the training data. It tells you that this was 1.3 billion. The training procedures, it shows you the intended use case and limitations. Okay, this model, whatever, you can read there, and you can even read then how to go about using it. So there is like, like ideas on how you can go about using the model. You can see the code, and you can see, some stuff in the intended use case. I want to read this intended use case again because I didn't read it the last time. Pre-trained text from a prompt. Okay, so it generates text from a prompt. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so it's finished downloading. Good. I'm happy with that. Let's actually just copy this from over there. All right. So then you gotta, also the pipeline, we've already done that. So let's run the generator, okay? So this is the next line over there. So after you've done the pipeline, okay, so I'm going to highlight that out because you don't need to run both of these. If you're running that, you don't need to run the other one, okay? So let's do the pipeline. Okay, let's enter a prompt first, okay? So the prompt is CRM software is also known as da-da-da-da. It can be used to do that, okay? So let's enter the prompt. All right, so we've entered the prompt over there. So once we've entered the prompt, then we can, get the response from the generator. Okay, generator, get a response with the prompt and the maximum length that it must, whatever, and the sample and the temperature and all of that. All right, so let's run that line of code then. and then it's going to get the response. And if you get to this point with your virtual server without it bombing out and like killing the process, you must know that the CPU that you selected is sufficient. Okay, so the last time I ran this model, I tried to run this model on the cheaper virtual server. I didn't get this far. It downloaded the first bit and then it killed the process because the model was just too big for the server to manage. All right. So this is why sometimes you end up using an API, right? If you don't use an API, the cost is that you're going to have to get a much more powerful machine to run the model yourself on the machine. Okay, and it takes also some time to do that generation. You saw it was a couple of seconds while I was keeping you busy with the talking, but now you can actually get the response out. Okay. So the response actually recorded under that variable. So I'm just going to print it out so you can see what response we got from the machine. All right. CRM software here's what I gave it. The prompt I gave it was: CRM software is also known as customer relationship management software. It can be used to manage and track all the customer interactions, either in the form of an online database, offline database. The CRM software is one of the best for customer service. It is a great tool for managing customer relations, and it can improve your customer service. You can use it to track all your customer services and all the interactions in it. Okay, so you can see that this definitely works much better. I'm going to try and get the same. I'm going to try and run the same. So let's actually clear this. Let's exit first. Okay, let's exit out of this. All right, let's clear so that I can put everything at the top and you can see. I'm going to run the same prompt with this other model and show you how much better the 1.3 billion model is. You can see the text I got from that made much more sense. All right. But if you try to run it with this other one, which is a smaller model, for example, if you got a smaller virtual server, you'll see that the response you get is not that great. Okay. So I'm going to say Python again. All right, this time I'm going to install from pipeline, I'm going to import that. But then this time, instead of running that model, I'm going to run this one. Okay, I'm going to generator run this one. All right, run the Distill GPT-2. This model is the one that is mostly downloaded over here. It's the most popular one because it's smaller. Okay, it's a smaller model. So let's run that one. And you'll see it downloads much faster because it's a smaller model. Right, so let's download. Then once we finish downloading that model, we're gonna run the exact same prompt. Okay, we're gonna run the exact same prompt, and from the prompt we're gonna run the response. All right, that's the response, and it also works a little bit faster as well. You'll see it's already gotten the response back. Okay, and if we print, you'll see it just prints a lot of empty space. Okay. It just gave me back what I said. CRM software is also known as it can be used to ensure customer information is being processed. Integrated vendor customer relationships are often sources of stress to customers. Most customers who receive marketing communication likely to use customer relation in order to. You can see some of the text doesn't even make sense. All right, like I don't even understand how this is connected. But the 1.3 billion one was much better. All right, so I'm going to exit out of this. All right, I'm going to clear that. All right, and let's play with this a little bit. All right, let's get like an Apple iPhone. Let's use that prompt. Okay, so let's then run this as an actual Python file. All right, so I'm gonna say nano Python nano GPT-2.py GPT-2 nano GPT-2.py. So it's going to open a text editor, and I'm actually going to just copy all of this in there. All right, so I'm going to run the 1.3 billion one. So let's delete the other one so we don't get confused. All right, so we import the pipeline, we get the generator, we get the prompt. This prompt is the one that goes in there inside of the generator, and then we print the generated text. All right, let's do that. Let's paste all of that in here, and then let's close. And then let's just run Python GPT-2.py. I just wanted to show you that we did only download this one. So the next time it runs this code on the same virtual server, it's not going to try and download the model again because it already downloaded it the last time. It's just running it off the downloaded model. It takes time because it's such a huge model. It's 1.3 billion, sort of like, variables or, you know, that it was trained on. So it takes a bit of time to get the result out. So let's just wait for it. There you go. When you see this, it means it's generating the stuff, it's working. Jeez, that's taking quite a bit of time. Okie dokie. Finally, okay, that took quite a bit of time. And if you wanted to build an online application, this amount of waiting period would not be acceptable. I can tell you that already, okay? So if you wanted to run this in your, like if you wanted to run your own application and use GPT-2 or use Neo, I suppose this is why they've got the API available, all right? So inside of HuggingFace, you can go into their API. So if you go into their login, you can log in and create an account. You can have a look at their pricing. I think I opened that pricing page earlier on, and I think you can actually access this for free. Okay, you can get it for free for up to like 30k input characters and some support. So there is some free version available for limited use, okay? And then if you want to get more use, and you, especially if you want to get the inference API, all right, you're gonna have to pay this $9 a month. So this API will allow you to do this without having to download the model and wait, you know. So this API is like 10 times faster, and it gives maybe a response time of closer to what you get with OpenAI, all right? But it's cheaper. And again, the only reason you want to use this over OpenAI, in my opinion, is if I've got a use case that I know would never be approved by OpenAI, all right? But if the pricing is not that much cheaper, to be honest, if you got a use case that was approved by OpenAI, I would just rather use that. But if I've got my own use case, like I want to do automated tweeting, for example, then I'd rather pay this $9 a month and use the open source API. Okay, so let's read what it gave us, okay? The Apple iPhone was the first smartphone manufactured by Apple Inc. It was released in September 9. iPhone was one of the Apple first devices. I mean, this is amazing. Like, this is actually not so bad. You know, depending on the use case, this is not so bad, really. And if you didn't have a problem with lagging times and you could like run this in the background, and this was not a real-time application, you know, and you were generating tweets, for example, if you're generating tweets on an automated tweet generator, you wouldn't worry about response time because it would be running like maybe on like a scheduler, okay? So you could like wait the little 1 minute that it takes to get the tweet back. This would be a perfect use case for that. And perhaps in the future, I'll do a tutorial on that where you can generate automated tweets from GPT-2. And then you can run it with a, Twitter API version 2 and just, tweet automatically. But I think Twitter will also not approve that use case if it gets to an approval stage, because Twitter would not want you to be generating automated tweets as well on their platform with a bot. Anyway, thank you guys for watching this tutorial. The next steps for you to do, which I'm not going to cover in this video, and please don't ask me in the comments to cover it because I'm telling you now that I will not cover it, but I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, you might want to then build an application around this thing, all right? Because what's the point of generating content on the command line, okay? So what you want maybe is to have a front end where somebody can input the prompt, and then when they finish inputting the prompt, it returns the response, okay? And I've done a lot of these tutorials, guys, on my YouTube channel where I've built in a Flask application, and within the Flask application, you can see the input and the output. So just watch that tutorial. It's in this video series with GPT-3 where, you can get the prompt via a form from the Flask application, and then you can get the form submitting the data directly to a to the view function, and then from the view function you then include so you can put all of this inside of a generate. All right, you can put this inside of a function like that, and then you enter the prompt from there. All right, and then instead of now entering the prompt manually, you enter it from the function, and then you return this. All right, okay, you return that. So this returns the response generated text. Okay, so you could do that. Then you don't have to put it inside of brackets. You can just say return response at 0 generated text. And then this function over here, you would run it inside of a Python Flask application. So if you go into the Python Flask application, you would have a root that says this. Okay, so you'd have a form or something like that. And then you would run that function with the prompt, you know. So have a look at the previous tutorials I've done showing you how to do that. Then somebody can submit a form. Then from the form, the post information, you get the prompt, you run that, and then you return, you know, answer is equals to this, and then you then show this to the front end, and then you display the answer that way. All right, so I'm not going to cover that because we're running out of time. I wanted this to be less than an hour this time, and I'm already on 50 minutes. You can do something like that. So watch our previous tutorial, especially the one where I show you how to do an automated content generator, but that's using GPT-3 model APIs. Instead, now that place where you had the GPT-3 model API, you just replace that function with this function. Okay, that part of the tutorial, and just like that, you're using GPT-2 instead, and it's a free GPT-Neo function where you don't have to go through all the approvals and all the stuff that goes with using the other API. All right, so thank you guys for watching. I think I'm going to end this tutorial here. Please feel free to ask questions in the description below. I will link all of the stuff that I've demonstrated here on the description, specifically this written tutorial where you can go and follow the steps that I have shown to you here. See you guys again next week.